Hello and welcome. This presentation will be on the state of advanced air mobility, AAM, in this country, the United States. My name is Sarah Nilsson. I'm a pilot since 1994, an ATP, former Part 135 pilot, and a CFI since 2000, a fast team representative and drone pro since 2015, and a lawyer licensed in Arizona since 2014. Founder and managing attorney at Nilsson Law, PLLC. I'm a professor at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Prescott since 2015. And on the far right are my two blue-eyed loves, Bill and Duke. In the center, my Phoebe, my flying broom, also known as a Piper Cherokee 235. And my other favorite machine on the left is Saphira, a Harley, a Heritage Softail. I'm also an author of 5 legal textbooks on aviation law, drone law, and advanced air mobility. And I am truly honored to be here today to present on the topic of AAM, the latest niche of aviation that brings me great joy for our future. I'm going to share a ton of resources, all of which are in this fantastic ebook, so you need not try to scramble to catch them all. This ebook is free to you all. Just scan the QR code. It's published by Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University Office of Open Education Resources. Huge shout out to the best aviation university in the world. This ebook is updated almost daily by me, with the help now and then of students and members of industry. It contains the world's entire drone and AAM laws, regulations, policies, and AAM news, so you can stay informed after today's presentation. I'd also like to mention that you can receive a copy of this presentation after tonight, so please don't try and copy all of this down. And now, please sit back, relax, and enjoy while I take you on a journey across the United States, uncovering the world of AAM, the aircraft, the pilots, the vertiports, and the airspace. An eVTOL, or Electric Vertical Takeoff and Landing Vehicle, is an aircraft that uses electric power to achieve vertical liftoff and landing, like a helicopter, but with the added benefit of electric propulsion, and 100 times quieter than traditional general aviation aircraft. This technology allows for operation in urban areas with limited space, offering a potential solution for urban air mobility and reducing reliance on traditional runways. This here is Beta Technologies' eCTOL besides its charging cube. More on Beta in a few. You may have seen Beta's electric aircraft in the skies this year. In April 2025, Beta completed a 6-week, 22-state cross-country journey across the United States. Beta's CX-300, tail number 9016 Lima Foxtrot, was the first to be rolled off Beta's scaled production line in Burlington, Vermont last year. It returned to Plattsburgh International Airport after visiting more than 20 states and 82 municipal, state, and military airfields. The journey took the CX-300 from Plattsburgh to Santa Monica, California, and back, flying over the Hollywood sign in Los Angeles, the mountainous Continental Divide, Midtown Manhattan, and other iconic landmarks. The aircraft completed up to 4 flights per day. It is designed for a pilot and up to 5 passengers, with a top cruise speed of 135 knots and demonstrated range of 336 nautical miles. Beta claims the CX-300 will produce 75% less emissions than a Cessna 208 Caravan at a fraction of the energy cost per hour. The trip was more than a public relations exercise, though. 9016 Lima Foxtrot flew in VFR, IFR, day and night conditions through snowstorms and scorching heat. An impressive validation of its systems, considering Beta registered the model with the FAA less than 6 months prior. Along the way, the aircraft used Beta's network of electric chargers to juice up, proving it is possible to fly an electric aircraft from coast to coast. It even demonstrated routes that could be operational ahead of the 2034 Winter Olympic Games in Salt Lake City, which Beta and its partners and Utah plan to use as a showcase for the technology. I will address the electric chargers a little bit later. If you were one of the lucky ones to visit Oshkosh this year in 2025, you might have seen firsthand Beta Technologies aircraft. They had both their electric aircraft, including the AAM CX300, on display and flying during the event. Specifically, the AAM CX300 was flown by CEO Kyle Clark during the Innovations Day Air Show. VTOL, vertical takeoff and landing, as a concept isn't new. The Hawker Harrier, also known as the Harrier jump jet, is an iconic aircraft that changed the game for military aviation. Developed by the British aircraft manufacturer Hawker Siddeley in the 1960s, the Harrier was the first operational jet-powered VTOL aircraft. Its unique design and capabilities made it a favorite among pilots and a staple in the world of military aviation. The development of the Hawker Harrier began in the late 1950s as a joint project between the United Kingdom and the United States. The goal was to create a VTOL aircraft that could be used for close air support, ground attack, and reconnaissance missions. The Harrier's unique design included 4 nozzles that could be swiveled to direct the aircraft's thrust, allowing it to take off and land vertically and hover in mid-air. The eVTOL movement started to gain traction in the United States in the last decade or two. JoBen Bevirt founded Joby Aviation in 2009, initially named Joby Aero. Joby is a California-based company developing an all-electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft for passenger transport. They are working towards FAA certification for commercial operations and have partnered with Toyota and Delta. Joby Aviation Inc. is publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange under the ticker symbol JOBY. Joby Aviation's S4 2.0 Generation 2 pre-production prototype is a 5-seater, 1 pilot and 4 passengers, eVTOL air taxi aircraft, using 6 tilting propellers which are located on both the fixed high wing and its V-tail. 4 propellers tilt vertically, including its entire motor nacelle, and 2 of the propellers tilt vertically with a linkage mechanism. The aircraft has a very modern and futuristic design with large windows for spectacular views and has a tricycle-type retractable wheeled landing gear. The company reports their aircraft is 100 times quieter than a helicopter during takeoff and landing, with a near-silent flyover. A distributed electric propulsion DEP system, leveraged by NASA's LEAP Tech demonstrations, can take the aircraft to speeds of 200 miles per hour, which are powered by lithium, nickel, cobalt, manganese oxide batteries, providing a range of 150 miles. The vehicle employs a unified flight control system to reduce pilot workload during the conversion to and from VTOL to horizontal flight mode. DEP on eVTOL aircraft provide multiple advantages, including greater stability of the aircraft in regular and gusty wind conditions, a much quieter aircraft, no emissions, lower weight, higher reliability, lower cost to operate, more compact, higher efficiency, no startup or shutdown delay, and safety through redundancy for its passengers. If one of the 2 motors or propellers fail, the other working propellers can safely land the aircraft. In February 2024, Joby announced they had just completed 3 of 5 stages of type certification process, making them the first eVTOL company to reach this milestone towards commercialization here in the US. Joby S4 is in the 4th stage of its FAA type certification process. Specifically, the company has completed more than 1/3 of the work for this stage and has begun Type Inspection Authorization, TIA, flight testing. TIA is the final phase of the type certification process before commercial operations can begin. Again, if you were one of the lucky ones to attend Oshkosh 2025, Joby was there. Specifically, Joby Aviation and their strategic partner Toyota shared a booth at the event. This marked the first time they exhibited together at an air show. Beta Technologies, who I mentioned earlier, was founded in 2017 by Kyle Clark, who is both CEO and test pilot. Based in Vermont, Beta Technologies specializes in eVTOL aircraft and is developing a proprietary charging network. More on that in a few. Beta Technologies is not publicly traded. It is a privately held company. Beta has two configurations of their aircraft AAM, a VTOL and a CTOL. Each has a wingspan of 50 feet, a 200 cubic foot cargo capacity, can carry 5 passengers, with charge time less than an hour. Single pilot instrument flight rules capable, but dual pilot configuration for training, and a max speed of 153 knots. Where they differ: the VTOL uses one H500A electric motor, 4 V600A electric lift motors for propulsion, together with one 5-blade fixed-pitch propeller and 4 2-blade lift propellers, whereas the CTOL version uses only one H500A electric motor for propulsion and one 5-blade fixed-pitch propeller. Beta Technologies is actively pursuing FAA certification for both its eCTOL and eVTOL aircraft, the AAM. The company is targeting certification for the CTOL model in 2025, followed by the AAM 250 eVTOL in 2026. Beta has already achieved significant milestones, including FAA authorization for dual-seat eVTOL pilot training and the first flight of a production AAM CX300 eCTOL aircraft. Archer was founded on October 16, 2018 by Adam Goldstein and Brett Adcock to develop eVTOL aircraft. The company was originally started by Goldstein and Adcock and privately funded. Archer is another California-based company focused on creating eVTOL aircraft for urban air mobility. Archer is working with United Airlines to launch an air taxi service. Archer is a publicly traded company. It is listed on the New York Stock Exchange under the ticker symbol ACHR. Archer Aviation Midnight, 5-seat eVTOL production aircraft, carries 4 passengers and 1 pilot for up to 60 miles, at speeds of up to 150 miles per hour using today's battery technologies. The company aims to provide a faster, sustainable and affordable urban transportation option. Archer says its unique design will also offer passengers increased safety while producing minimal noise compared to helicopters. The aircraft has 12 electric propellers, 6 tilt propellers, each with 5 blades, for forward and VTOL flight, and 6 fixed propellers for VTOL-only flight, each propeller having 2 blades. Midnight aircraft has 12 electric engines and 6 independent battery packs. Each of Midnight's battery packs power a set of forward and aft motors diagonally opposite each other. This design means it can safely complete a flight if any engine or battery pack shuts down at any point in the flight. The sleek fuselage is completed with high main wing, a V-tail, and tricycle fixed-wheeled landing gear. In May 2024, the FAA issued for public inspection the final airworthiness criteria for Archer's Midnight aircraft. This milestone provides a firm path for Archer to achieve type certification. The company is one of only 2 eVTOL companies to achieve this with the FAA. The criteria unlocks the ability for Archer to work with the FAA to obtain the remaining final approvals on its certification and test plans. Billy Nolan, Archer Chief Regulatory Affairs Officer and former FAA Administrator, commented, Midnight is another step closer to taking passengers into the US sky. This final airworthiness criteria for Midnight is an important step on our journey to make electric flying taxis an everyday reality. Wisk was officially founded in December 2019 as a joint venture between Boeing and Kitty Hawk. It was initially formed from the merger of Kitty Hawk and Z Aero. Wisk Aero is not a publicly traded company. It is a privately held company and a wholly owned subsidiary of Boeing. Wisk Aero is a Mountain View, California company developing an autonomous four-passenger eVTOL aircraft. Unlike the first three aircraft I have showed you, Wisk is designed from the onset to be autonomous with human oversight. It has 4 seats and a wingspan of less than 50 feet. It boasts a range of 90 miles with reserves and a speed of 100 to 120 knots. Charging time is about 15 minutes, and there's a storage or baggage compartment for carry-on and personal items. Wisk's 6th generation air taxi is designed to be the first autonomous, all-electric, 4-passenger eVTOL aircraft seeking FAA certification for passenger transport. Wisk is working closely with the FAA on the type certification process for this aircraft. The company is also pursuing production and operating certificates to begin commercial service, aiming for this decade. I mention these 4 U.S. companies because they're coming to a town or airport near you, and soon. Now, I promised you I'd share information about charging stations, so here we go. Beta's multimodal charging infrastructure allows AAM to charge in under 1 hour, is compatible with other electric aircraft and ground EVs, and is already being deployed across the country. Beta developed and designed its family of charging solutions with aviators, operators, and airports in mind. And, like their aircraft, the chargers are built for safety, reliability, and practicality. The Charge Cube is a robust charging solution with a 50-foot cable designed to fit under aircraft wings. It delivers 320 kilowatts of power, capable of fully charging the AAM aircraft in under an hour. Meanwhile, using the same fundamental charging system, the Mini Cube is a mobile 40 kilowatt or 65 kilowatt charger on wheels, ideal for flexible use around hangars or remote airstrips. Multimodal and interoperable, these chargers offer a fast, universal, and cost-effective way to power all types of electric vehicles, from Beta's AAM to cars, trucks, and even other electric aircraft. Not just relied on by their own customers, these chargers are also being adopted by other OEMs across the industry. Beta's chargers, the only UL certified chargers made specifically for electric aircraft, use the Combined Charging Standards (CCS), backed by the General Aviation Manufacturers Association. In 2024, Beta had already installed chargers at 46 locations in 22 states across the United States. Archer Aviation, Signature Aviation, Atlantic Aviation, AvFlight, the State of Michigan, regional and municipal airports, and U.S. government agencies have partnered with Beta to purchase and install a Beta charger to power their programs or prepare for the future of electric aviation. In February 2025, Florence Regional Airport partnered with Beta Technologies to install South Carolina's first electric aircraft charger. I'd like to share this 2-minute video because seeing, or in this case hearing, is believing, to demonstrate the quiet nature of eVTOLs. We all know that most of the non-flying public cite noise as their #1 complaint around airports. Please enjoy the quiet. If you're into Microsoft Flight Simulator, the 2024 version features several eVTOL aircraft, including the Joby S4 and Archer Midnight, allowing players to experience the future of flight. These additions, alongside other electric and hybrid electric aircraft, are part of a broader trend of integrating these new technologies into the simulator. Now that I hopefully grabbed your attention with the shiny new aircraft, let's turn to the law. Is that a groan I hear? In 2022, our U.S. Congress enacted the Advanced Air Mobility Coordination and Leadership Act. It directed the Department of Transportation to establish an AAM interagency working group to plan and coordinate efforts related to the safety, infrastructure, physical security, cybersecurity, and federal investment necessary to bolster the AAM ecosystem, particularly passenger-carrying aircraft in the U.S. It also directed the U.S. Government Accountability Office to study and report to Congress on the interest, roles, and responsibilities of federal, state, local, and tribal governments affected by AAM aircraft and operations. In 2022, our U.S. Government Accountability Office published these two documents. The first called for Congress to clarify definitions of these aircraft in tax law. Taxes on airspace users support FAA operations and help finance airport infrastructure. However, some users, like medical transport services, qualify for tax exemptions. The second was a study to look at issues in implementing widespread AAM operations, challenges in developing a skilled AAM industry workforce, and projected timeframes for development of the AAM industry. In 2023, the White House released a vision for America's continued global leadership in aeronautics, which identifies three key priority areas. 1. Achieving sustainable aviation. 2. Transforming the national airspace system. And 3. Promoting connectivity and speed. In April 2023, the FAA published its second UAM Concepts of Operations, CONOPS, in collaboration with NASA and industry partners. This CONOPS is aimed at developing an air transportation system that moves people and cargo between local, regional, intra-regional, and urban locations, not previously served or underserved by aviation, using innovative aircraft, technologies, infrastructure, and operations. The UAM CONOPS version 2.0 serves as a common reference point for FAA, NASA, and the industry to guide research and decision-making. The goal is to safely integrate UAM operations into the NAS, initially focusing on low-tempo operations, leveraging existing rules, then scaling up with advancements in autonomy and information sharing. Future versions will aim to provide a more comprehensive vision of the partnership needed for UAM operations. It details the relationship of UAM within air traffic services and XTM, which is Extensible Traffic Management, a cooperative operating environment, service environments. It includes definitions for terms used across these environments. It explains how the current regulatory framework can be used to support initial UAM operations, with amendments to reflect updated terms and provide greater detail. It provides additional detail on UAM corridors, including their potential evolution over time, and a concept where UAM corridors are exempted from certain traffic management initiatives. The document includes an updated architecture with more specific details, such as data exchanges related to UAM and its service providers, and a depiction of vertiports. With respect to the evolution of operations, a new framework details initial midterm and mature stage operations based on indicators like flight tempo, infrastructure complexity, regulations, and aircraft automation. It introduces cooperative operating practices, COPS. These are industry-defined, FAA-approved practices addressing how operators manage operations in a cooperative environment, including conflict management and demand capacity balancing. Mature state operations will be achieved at scale through a crawl, walk, run approach, wherein, number one, initial UAM operations are conducted using new aircraft types that have been certified to fly within the current regulatory and operational environment. Current industry projections describe initial UAM operations incorporating a pilot in command on board the aircraft with potential evolution to remote PIC. Number two, a higher frequency, that is tempo, of UAM operations in the future is supported through regulatory evolution and UAM corridors that leverage collaborative technologies and techniques. Number three, new operational rules and infrastructure facilitate highly automated cooperative flow, management in defined cooperative areas, enabling remotely piloted and autonomous aircraft to safely operate at increased operational tempos. In June 2023, the U.S. Department of Transportation, Office of Inspector General, released an audit report on the regulatory gaps and lack of consensus hindering FAA's progress in certifying AAM aircraft, among other challenges. Then, in July 2023, the FAA released Innovate 28, formerly known as the AAM Implementation Plan. This provides the steps the FAA and others will need to take to safely enable AAM operations at scale by 2028, just in time for the Los Angeles Olympics. The document outlines the FAA's crawl, walk, run approach. Initially, operations are expected to utilize existing infrastructure with modifications, likely along predetermined routes and schedules, with pilots on board, potentially operating at altitudes up to 4,000 feet in urban areas. It focuses on areas such as aircraft and pilot certification under a special class category using performance-driven regulations. Initial operations using piloted aircraft on predetermined routes and schedules, and maximizing existing infrastructure in the short term. Airspace management will involve AAM aircraft flying in controlled, low-altitude airspace with ATC clearance when needed. Community engagement and security, including cybersecurity, are also addressed. Innovate 28 aims to establish a repeatable methodology for expanding AAM operations and involves collaboration among various stakeholders, including government agencies and industry. In essence, Innovate 28 aims to establish a framework for the safe and gradual introduction of AAM operations, setting the stage for wider integration of technologies like air taxis and eVTOL aircraft. Charted routes will be the primary routing structure used by AAM aircraft. This approach enables the FAA to develop routes that accommodate AAM operator needs while leveraging the existing design and charting processes. The FAA's air traffic organization will continue to address AAM through its ATO AAM Near-Term Operational Integration Workgroup, which was established in November 2021 to identify air traffic considerations and impacts for near-term operations. After concluding their review in June 2022, this group had identified 55 recommendations to help address the integration of AAM operations in the near term. Many of the recommendations require changes to FAA policy and guidance directives. And talking of airspace, I must mention our President's One Big Beautiful Bill Act, signed into law on the 4th of July 2025. $12.5 billion investment has been approved for modernizing the U.S. air traffic control system. This aims to address aging infrastructure and staffing shortages, enhancing safety and efficiency. The initiative includes upgrades to facilities, systems, and technology, as well as investments in recruitment, training, and advanced technologies for air traffic controllers. The modernization effort is supported by various aviation stakeholders, including airlines, aviation organizations, and the public, who recognize the need for upgrades to the current system. The funding will support the replacement of outdated equipment such as copper wires and floppy disks, and will address challenges related to ATC staffing shortages. Now back to AAM. Our U.S. Congress enacted the FAA Reauthorization Act of 2024, reauthorizing the FAA through fiscal year 2028. Among its more than 1,000 pages, it requires the FAA to issue rules for certifying pilots for powered lift aircraft, that is, aircraft capable of vertical takeoff and landing, as well as operational rules. In October 2024, the FAA implemented the final rule to adopt permanent amendments and a special Federal Aviation Regulation, an SFAR, for a period of 10 years to do three things. 1, to facilitate the certification of powered lift pilots. 2, to clarify operating rules applicable to operations involving a powered lift. And 3, to finalize other amendments which are necessary to integrate powered lift into the NAS. The FAA finalized its alternate framework to stand up initial groups of powered lift pilots and flight instructors, as well as alternate frameworks to facilitate the certification of pilots seeking qualifications in a powered lift with single functioning flight controls and a single pilot station. SFAR 120, as this is called, is codified in 14 CFR Part 194. So far, we've been talking about electric aircraft, but in December 2024, the FAA released its hydrogen-fueled aircraft safety and certification roadmap. The FAA believes hydrogen has the potential to redefine aviation by enabling more sustainable flight. So, they developed this roadmap to outline the current knowledge, key research priorities, and collaborative efforts essential to enabling the safe use of hydrogen in civil aviation aircraft. Joby Aviation is exploring hydrogen electric propulsion for its eVTOL aircraft, specifically the S4, to extend range and potentially enable regional travel. In 2021, Joby Aviation purchased the leading hydrogen aviation developer, H2Fly, based in Stuttgart, Germany. While the current S4 is battery electric, Joby has been testing a hydrogen electric demonstrator, achieving a record-breaking 523-mile flight in 2024. This demonstrates the potential for hydrogen to significantly increase the range of eVTOL aircraft, beyond what's currently possible with batteries alone. With water as the only byproduct, Joby's flight demonstrates potential for emissions-free regional travel. Their hydrogen electric program is supported by Joby's partnership with the U.S. Air Force Agility Prime program. If you look closely, you'll see a chemtrail. No, I joke. That's all the non-flying public needs to see. When it comes to certifying these new eVTOLs, these powered lift flying machines, the FAA chose the route of 14 CFR Part 21.17 Bravo. The FAA has already released an advisory circular AC 2117-4. This advisory circular provides guidance for the type, production, and airworthiness certification of powered lift. It also designates, in Appendix A, an acceptable means of showing compliance with 14 CFR 2117 Bravo. The FAA released a policy statement to establish a safety continuum for the certification of powered lift. The purpose was to provide a balanced approach between the risk and safety benefits for certificating such aircraft. The policy identifies certification levels for powered lift and establishes a graduated scale of compliance standards for the certification of these aircraft. The levels are based on aircraft maximum gross weight, maximum passenger seating configuration, and type of operation, and are used to establish the safety objectives for system safety and aircraft performance. In a second draft policy statement by the FAA, entitled Special Class Rotorcraft, the FAA proposed policy to identify certain rotorcraft as special class. What's the reason behind this, you may ask? Advancements in technology have resulted in the development of electrically powered rotorcraft with more than two main rotor systems, and the FAA has found that they are not typical of the traditional rotorcraft designs. For the past few years, the FAA has been working with potential applicants on certification projects for normal category rotorcraft designs that create lift and thrust by using multiple, 3 or more, rotor systems. Existing type certification criteria do not accommodate or apply to these rotorcraft. In December 2024, the FAA released its second iteration of its engineering brief for vertiport design, EB-105A, updating the previous one from 2022. This engineering brief provides standards and guidance for the planning, design, and construction of heliports serving VTOL aircraft. Some of these updates include classification, where vertiports will be a subclass of heliports serving aircraft with 3 or more propulsive units. Geometry. RD, that is rotor diameter, will now be a subset of D, where RD is the smallest circle enclosing just the propulsion units. Parking. Parking positions using hover and or air taxi ops to be no smaller than the FADO and the dynamic load bearing. Downwash and outwash. Added a downwash outwash caution area, DCA. Marking. The traditional H is in. The letters VTL on the takeoff and landing area will designate it as a vertiport. The FAA also updated its Advisory Circular 150-5390-2D heliport design. VTOL are now defined as aircraft certified as powered lift or special class rotorcraft. And there's even more great news from the White House. On June 6, 2025, our U.S. President signed an executive order tasking our Secretary of Transportation, acting through the FAA, with establishing the eVTOL Integration Pilot Program known as EIPP. Its goal is to accelerate the deployment of safe and lawful eVTOL operations in the U.S. The EIPP is to operate for at least 3 years, bringing together 5 teams comprised of industry, academia, state, local, and tribal governments with a mission to develop regulations, initiatives, and plans. In April 2025, the FAA joined CASA in Australia, Transport Canada, the Civil Aviation Authority of New Zealand, and the UK Civil Aviation Authority to collaborate on AAM aircraft type certification. Jointly, in June 2025, these 5 nations published a roadmap for AAM aircraft type certification to foster cooperation, learning, and sharing of best practices, and use of AAM-inclusive bilateral agreements. This will allow aircraft manufacturers to maximize the transferability of their aircraft across the 5 nations. Companies wishing to operate eVTOLs commercially must also obtain an air carrier certificate from the FAA under 14 CFR Part 135, which carries additional safety, maintenance, performance, and operational requirements. eVTOL operators must also obtain economic authority from the DOT to operate commercially and will be subject to associated U.S. ownership and control requirements. Joby received their Part 135 air carrier certificate in May of 2022. Archer received theirs in June of 2024. What about maintenance regulations? 14 CFR Part 145 repair stations. Well, Joby and Archer both received their Part 145 maintenance certificates from the FAA in February of 2024. What about flight schools? In December 2024, Joby received its Part 141 certificate for its flight academy to establish a pipeline of qualified pilots. In February 2025, Archer received their Part 141 certificate. In August 2024, Beta Technologies received the FAA's sign-off to begin training more pilots on its ALIA 250. The FAA granted it a letter of authorization to start dual-seat pilot training of manufacturer and FAA personnel, such as the Aviation Safety Inspector, who will ultimately help certify the aircraft for commercial service. Trainees ride along with one of Beta's 8 powered lift test pilots as outlined in the FAA's powered lift pilot training proposal, which requires eVTOL training aircraft to have dual controls. The FAA reviewed the ground, simulation, and flight training procedures used to train that group before issuing the LOA. Recall that in addition to the A250, Beta is developing its CTOL model called CX300. That design has already been flown by pilots from the FAA, U.S. Air Force, U.S. Army, and companies such as UPS and Bristow Group. The company's eVTOL, meanwhile, is one of a handful of designs to complete a crew transition from hover to cruise flight, but testing has largely been concentrated around its headquarters in Vermont. Beta configured the aircraft with dual controls by default, but if the operator plans to operate a single seat, the company will sell them a single seat model, with provisions for dual controls. Beta claims the cockpit can be fitted with dual controls in about 20 minutes. There is no limit on the number of pilots Beta can train under this approval. Though the FAA has yet to sign off on the firm's use of a simulator to train pilots, the company says it is developing a simulator that will meet FAA requirements for a qualified training device. The FAA has also accepted Joby's Part 5 SMS, Safety Management System, for air operations. SMS is the formal top-down organization-wide approach to managing safety risk and assuring the effectiveness of safety risk controls. It includes systematic procedures, practices, and policies for the management of safety risk. Recall that in 2024, the FAA mandated that charter airlines, commuter airlines, air tour operators, and certain aircraft manufacturers develop an SMS within 1 to 3 years, depending on the operation. Recall, too, that the FAA has required U.S. airlines to have SMS since 2018, and some manufacturers already developed and implemented SMS, which the FAA accepted. In case you're wondering about these highly automated flying machines, where does the FAA stand on artificial intelligence? Well, the FAA published a roadmap for AI safety assurance in 2024. A few more words here on vertiports. Several U.S. cities and regions are actively planning on or developing vertiports, which are infrastructure hubs for eVTOL aircraft. These plans are part of the broader push for AAM, aiming to integrate eVTOLs into urban transportation networks. What you see on the screen is the FAA's vertiport design concept. AAM activity is particularly strong in Florida, with 24 sites identified across the state. California and Texas are also seeing significant development and planning for vertiports, often driven by the presence of tech companies and established aviation infrastructure. Supernal, Joby, Eve, and Archer have all declared their interest in prioritizing Miami as an early UAS AAM hub, while Joby, Eve, and Archer are developing plans for routes networks centered on San Francisco. Supernal is an AAM company and a subsidiary of Hyundai Motor Group that is developing an eVTOL vehicle, the SA2, and the supporting infrastructure to make AAM a reality. Eve Air Mobility, founded in 2020 as a spin-off from Embraer X, Embraer's innovation division, is also building an eVTOL. New York is another state where vertiports are being planned, potentially connecting urban centers and surrounding areas. In April 2025, the New York City Economic Development Corporation unveiled Downtown Skyport, formerly the Downtown Manhattan Heliport, as the initial hub for eVTOL operations there. Both Blade, Beta eVTOLs, and United Airlines Archer eVTOLs have announced plans for early operations, while a few minutes flight time away in New Jersey at the Kearney Heliport, Delta, Joby, and FlyNow Beta will also provide early commercial services. Low-level airspace above Manhattan is likely to be very crowded very soon. Ferrovial Vertiports and UrbanV are two companies collaborating to develop vertiport networks in Florida, New York, California, and Texas, focusing on technical feasibility and economic viability studies. UrbanV is a U.S. company. Likewise, Signature Aviation and Atlantic Aviation are collaborating to develop vertiport networks across the country. In October 2023, the FAA issued the first conditional approval for a vertiport at Allen C. Perkinson Blackstone Army Airfield in Blackstone, Virginia, creating a path for the airport to establish the first licensed public-use vertiport in the United States. eVTOLs are influencing the FAA's Airport Improvement Program, AIP, grant assurances in several ways, primarily related to AAM infrastructure and operations. The FAA acknowledges the need to integrate AAM infrastructure, such as vertiports, into the NAS. Airport sponsors receiving AIP funds for AAM projects, including vertiport development, will need to comply with specific grant assurances related to the following: design and safety standards. I just shared how the FAA is developing and updating design and safety standards for vertiports. Airport sponsors must adhere to these standards. Planning and environmental review. Just like traditional airport projects, eVTOL infrastructure developments, example, vertiports and charging stations, may require adherence to planning processes and environmental review, potentially involving compliance with regulations like NEPA, the National Environmental Policy Act. And time here is too short to talk about the energy needs for the charging stations and the possibility of creating microgrids. Notification and reporting. Let's not forget that the FAA requires airports to notify them about proposed new vertiport construction and update records within 15 days of project completion. Zero-emission vehicle and infrastructure pilot program. While eVTOLs are a new entrant, the FAA already has a zero-emission vehicle program that supports the development of zero-emission vehicles and related infrastructure at eligible airports. This program provides a potential pathway for funding eVTOL charging stations and other infrastructure through AIP grants, with a focus on emissions reduction. Priority selection factors include achieving air quality benefits. Integration and safety. The FAA's overall goal is the safe integration of eVTOL aircraft into the NAS. This includes setting certification requirements for aircraft design, production, and operation, as well as pilot training and certification. Airport sponsors must ensure their facilities support safe eVTOL operations, adhering to applicable regulations and standards. Broader grant assurances. eVTOL integration must also comply with the general AIP grant assurances, which cover aspects like the following: safety and efficiency. Airports must maintain and operate facilities safely and efficiently. Economic non-discrimination. Grant Assurance 22 prohibits discrimination against specific types of aircraft or operations. This could be relevant for ensuring fair access to vertiports by different eVTOL operators. compatible land use. Grant Assurance 21 promotes compatible land use around airports. eVTOL infrastructure should be developed in a manner consistent with this assurance. And lastly, environmental considerations. The FAA is monitoring environmental impacts such as noise and air quality associated with AAM. This aligns with grant assurance obligations related to environmental compliance. In essence, as eVTOLs become a reality, airport sponsors accepting AIP funds will need to ensure their infrastructure and operations align with the evolving regulatory framework and grant assurances related to AAM, safety and environmental considerations. The folks at the FAA are excited about sharing AAM with the public and have several videos and webinar recordings for you to watch and enjoy. As I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, all these YouTube videos are in my ebook. Before I close, let's take a brief look at some states in the United States where state or local laws have already been enacted to pave the way for AAM. There are now 92 U.S. cities and airports planning for eVTOL commercial operations, according to the latest North American Regional Report within the global AAM market map, which identifies details of every UAM or AAM route and infrastructure program in the world, the sites where vertiports are planned, and routes where eVTOLs will fly, and the partners in each program. There are 14 U.S. states where 2 or more vertiports are planned to be built in the next 3 years, and a further 15 states where AAM strategizing has begun, or at least one potential vertiport site has been identified, according to Philip Butterworth Hayes, author of this report. Florida, Orlando city codes feature design and specification of vertiports and standards for the approval of vertiports. Illinois, Chicago Municipal Code features zoning ordinances for heliports, helistops, or vertiports. And in 2020, New Hampshire enacted the Jetsons Law, a legal framework for flying cars. Should you want to know more about AAM, not just in the US but also globally, where some countries have advanced quite a few steps forward than us, I invite you to follow the Advanced Air Mobility Institute, of which I am an academic scholar. They recently, last month, held their July Global AAM Forum, where liaisons from 80 countries over a span of 4 days discussed recent developments. This event takes place twice per year and brings together industry leaders, policymakers, researchers, and innovators to share insights, collaborate, and shape the direction of AAM technologies through public awareness. Video recordings are available on YouTube and are also embedded in my ebook that I shared earlier on, under AAM News for each country in the world. You might want to mark your calendars. AAMI is hosting the Pulitzer Electric Aircraft Race in October in Springfield, Ohio, home of the National AAM Center of Excellence. This will mark precisely 100 years since the last running of the original Pulitzer Trophy air race. It promises to be a historic air race to celebrate the dawn of electric aviation and will feature up to 24 race crews flying aboard any form of zero-emission, fully electric aircraft, eCTOL, eSTOL, eVTOL, helicopter, electric seaplane, etc., to increase public awareness of AAM technology. And on that happy note of Jetsons and flying cars, I hope this short AAM journey has inspired you to learn more. If you're a pilot like me, you can consider getting the type rating for one when they become available. Personally, I may be able to afford a Jetson 1, a single-seat, all-electric personal eVTOL designed for recreational flying, built by Swedish company Jetson Aero. I'll show you a brief snippet of a video from July 2025 where Jetson 1 demonstrated its efficiency at mountain rescue in Poland, and then I'll open the floor for questions. Thank you for listening, and feel free to connect on LinkedIn.